everybody, and welcome back to episode 2 of Adapting Together, an Honest Conversation. I am Ali C.
And I am Footless Jo.
And we're happy to have you here. So we were really stoked that the first episode we recorded went super well. Did you feel like it went well, Jo? Feel like it was okay?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
No, it took off in good directions that I wasn't even planning on it. Like, I didn't even plan to talk about anything social media wise, but I think it was good because that's what you do, and that's like part of who you are, and that's important. And as much as this is an honest conversation about like being abled versus disabled, still just like love to get to know you because like the people want you. People want you. But today's episode, you're welcome. We decided that it was important. It was important to dive right in, to talk about it, to bear the storm, talk about dating. Because dating's one of those things where you're like, I want to go for it, but how do I go about it? Maybe if I'm able, dating someone disabled when I'm abled. And we're just going to just get down and right into it because I think it's important. If you're looking for a partner, if that's something you strive for, then we're here for you. If you're loving the single life and you're like, listen, I'm single and I'm proud, love it too. Any way you go, whatever you do, whoever you love, we're all about it. So I want to preface that as well. So Jo, tell us what you would think the first kind of like step into dating as someone that is disabled. And it can even be like disabled to disabled. I don't want to like shun that kind of like side out of that too. Yeah. I just would love to hear your first thoughts about the whole dating scene. And what were you already married when you got in your accident? Okay, you were. So you were able-bodied as you were dating.
Yes, I was. When I was dating my husband, I had a lot of issues with my ankle still, so I was like going through surgeries occasionally and stuff. But we were, I think, 2.5 years into our being married when I actually had the amputation.
Oh wow. Okay. So that was kind of a different term because you had already found someone that like knew you through and through and would love you unconditionally. And that's beautiful.
Yes.
You're like, I got lucky for sure. That was it.
But I really did though.
Do you feel like it was definitely a change for both of you though? Like going into that new life together, obviously.
Oh yeah, I think that's huge. And that's something that I always tell people who are facing amputation that like, or any major change, right? Like it happens primarily to you, but it also happens to the people around you. So it's really important to allow other people space as well. And I think at least to some extent that also applies to like dating or getting into any kind of relationship. I asked my audience on TikTok and Instagram a little while ago, if you're an able-bodied person and you're dating, what hesitations would you have when it comes to dating someone who's disabled? Like, be honest, right? And I was so honored that a lot of people were honest, and like some people just like private messaged me their thoughts. A lot of people commented, and there were some common things that came up. So I think it's important to have those conversations because it's going to look a little bit different for everyone. And whether you're in a relationship already or not, it can come with challenges too.
What were some of like the common things about people that were able trying to date someone disabled? Like, would you mind sharing if it's too personal?
Oh yeah, absolutely. What I wasn't actually expecting this one at all. And it was probably one of the most common answers was being afraid of saying the wrong thing. Like not knowing what to say, like being uncomfortable and just being like, I don't want to hurt or offend somebody as I'm like, if I like want to date them and get to know them. And so I'm just concerned about like even ever starting anything.
Starting the conversation about it.
Right. That's a really good fear to bring up because that's real, right?
Exactly.
Like I felt that with people. I'm sure you felt that with people. Like, I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Yes. No, 100%. Because I think everybody is very hyper aware that, we want to be saying the right thing, but you never want to not acknowledge it. So what was your advice kind of like when you got asked that? Like, what would you say?
Yeah. So I think with that one, it's going to be different for everybody to some extent, right? But what you can't go wrong with is being respectful and also being honest with respect. I think sometimes people say like, I'm an honest person to the fault of you're just mean to people. But being honest in a respectful fashion, like if you do have concerns about something like that, and you know someone who's disabled, or maybe you're entering into a relationship with someone who's disabled, something like that, I think it's really important to be like, hey, I'm into you, but I also don't really know a whole lot about this thing you have going on. I'm gonna say the wrong thing. I think just being honest and being like, I wish I knew everything, but I don't. And I'm really frightened that I'm going to say something stupid. So if I do, would you please tell me?
Right.
So like
and
that
then,
doesn't, you know,
and then it really is on that person to just say, here's what I feel. Yes, I want to talk about it. No, I don't. And then kind of like respecting them and going forward. I mean, it kind of just constitutes as anything, right? Like if someone had a major life altering surgery, or maybe they lost someone. I mean, you're going to be respectful of no matter what it is, but for some odd reason, when we can see it and you versus not seeing it, it's like, it's more, it's scarier because you're like, oh, I don't want to come off in any which way or form. But what I think is interesting too is that when I've been able to talk to some people that have been dating as able bodies dating disabled individuals, they're concerned about not doing enough, almost like, and by that I mean, are they going to enough like resources for their partner? Are they doing too little? Like what would be the happy medium, I guess? And then I don't know, like is it too aggressive to be going to events and kind of like without your partner who's disabled and then going to disabled events like online or something and trying to get to know? Or would you be like, oh, that's kind of nice, and like trying to be more in their world?
I think at least for me and in my experience and with the experience of life that I have had, I've always found it really beneficial, and it feels like being taken care of if someone is willing to take time out of their day to look something up, to look into something, to find a resource, to read a book, to read an article, where you don't have to do all of the explaining. I think kind of the add-on to the be honest with people, and if you're afraid you're going to say the wrong thing, maybe just tell them, is also like asking if it's okay to ask questions, right? And if you're asking, and if you get there okay, if like, yeah, it's okay to ask me questions, it's great to have that conversation and have that back and forth. But the more you read, the more you research, the more other people you speak to, you're going to have a better understanding, right? And so you might not be asking as many rudimentary questions. You might be able to go deeper with someone, or might not have to ask them things that they don't want to necessarily waste time answering, right?
Exactly.
So I don't think that's out of line at all to like do your own research and look into things if it's something that you have concerns, thoughts, curiosities about.
Right. I feel like everybody, well, I don't really know how to describe it, because again, I've never dated someone that is disabled, and it's not that I wouldn't, but do you think that should be a turn off, like in that category for someone that's looking into dating someone? Like, what would you say to a friend that was like, oh man, I really want to date this person, but they just lost their leg recently and I don't know how to cope. So like, what advice, I guess, would you have for someone like that?
I think first and foremost, like that's honest, right? Being like, I don't know how to cope with this. So like, I'm not sure. I think that's very, very real. Along with that though, I think from personal experience, because I was not always an amputee, I had a lot of misconceptions about what life as an amputee looked like. And I can only speak to this specifically from like the amputation angle, but this could apply to so many different things,
right.
Of what people can and can't do, of how they might think about themselves or not. And it really is so individual. And there are a lot of assumptions made about what someone can or cannot do activity wise, or like life wise, or just physically. And people make decisions based on that. Like, well, I don't know if we could go hiking together, and I love hiking, so it's probably not the relationship for me. It's like, no. Oftentimes people are a lot more capable than you think they might be. Another concern that's brought up a lot is independence. Like, I don't want to be a caretaker in a relationship, which where you draw that line thing.
Right? It's like you want to be their partner, not their mom, not their dad. Like you kind of just want to be there for them as a boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever you identify as.
And I think to that, again, this is gonna vary, but the vast majority of the time people will have resources and things already in place. Like, there might be some additional things that you do, but it'd be like if you were dating someone who was like going through a episode of depression and having a hard time, and maybe you're going to bring them soup, or like give them a couple extra hugs, like whatever they might need.
It's
not as big of a deal as some
you
people think, depending on the disability.
Right.
Yeah, it's like my husband, I asked him, oh, go ahead.
No, please. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say my husband, I interviewed him on camera, and I was like, I want to find the tea, right? I'm like, okay, what does he really think? And I was like, you know, how much more work is it, you know, before or after my amputation for you personally, or how different it is? And he's a pretty honest guy, and he's like, yeah, it's not really. I have to get you water sometimes and put your leg on, but that's it. I was like, oh, okay, cool.
But you would want to be with someone like either or, like that is willing to accept you who you are through and through. Yes. Doesn't matter what you look like, doesn't matter, you know, what you have on the outside. It's as corny as it sounds, it really just matters about your heart and the character that you are and who you are willing to be for somebody else. So I feel like that's always the first and foremost. And then, you know, you kind of get into like the physicalities and things like that. But if they're a good person, I would just say go for it. And then you learn along the way. Is there have you ever like talked to any of your friends who might be amputees, and have they ever gone out with someone that just like asked them like super inappropriate questions?
Well, yeah, definitely. There are a lot of like sexual questions that come up way too soon, which again is not like uncommon for the world of dating or dating apps, but still of just like things like, well, can you do this, can you do that, where it's like, okay, all right, well, that's
maybe not, just a little too personal. Do you have any things that you would say that's like a do or don't that you would stand by? It's like, say if you're going to go on a date today and it was your first date, like would there be anything that comes to mind that you'd be like, okay, I don't want this person to ask me right now, or like I don't know if I want to have them like talk about it? I don't know.
Yeah,
if not, it's okay.
Just my gut reaction is mostly like, I realize that if I am like honest with someone that, hey, I'm an amputee, okay, cool, they might have questions, but if I'm going on a date, like I'm married, so I'm not going on dates. But like if I'm going on a date with someone, I wouldn't want that to be the whole topic of conversation. I think sometimes it can veer into that territory of being like, this is different, so it must be all of who you are. That is one thing that I've found is just in relationships in general, not even romantic, but just relationships in general. Sometimes there's this assumption that this disability is 95% of your identity, when in reality, it's like 10% for me. It looks like it's a lot more because I talk publicly a lot about this, but in my daily life, like it might occasionally come up if I'm like, hey, I actually can't go on the 5-mile hike with you guys, I'll join you for 2, and then I'll meet you for like coffee at the bottom kind of thing. And that's it. Like
that's it, exactly. And so it's not even like a big deal, and like you don't want to make things like an interview process, like literally just like have fun with it and go for it. I mean, because they're just people at the end of the day, and you would be dating regardless, like if this or that or whatever it may be, just get to know them on like a personal level, which I know is a scary thing maybe for some people, but that's like a whole nother thing.
It is
a whole other thing. But no, so that makes sense. You just don't want it to be that's not who you are through and through. And I think that is something that you always do, like make sure you I mean, I completely hear you when you say that, and I completely respect that about you. Obviously, you know, as we talk on these like calls and chats, and it's a little bit more about that just because like that's how we got brought together. But I mean, if you're
exactly.
Like,
it's
you're
like
on
the
a
focus
date
of it, right?
Exactly. But if you're on like a date with someone, it's like, don't go off on like a 20-minute tangent about like why this, why that, have your PowerPoint like in the background, like, well, Y and Z, and like bring it to the restaurant. They're like, well, here it is as a PDF. You're like, no. That's not what it's about. But I think,
and here's a person.
And again, exactly. Here is a person. And I think that's kind of like the whole premise of everything. It's just, you are going to be treated like a person, individual, a human being with respect and honesty, and that's important. And you know, it might be, would you say that it definitely could be a little awkward at first with going with
think
those kind of
things? Absolutely.
Yeah,
because I think, I mean, even if I put myself in that situation, like mentally, like if I was if I was dating another amputee, I'd probably be like, well, I'm cool with this thing or that thing, you're talking about this or that, but like I don't know if they are, so maybe I shouldn't ask. Like it's but that's how any date goes, right? Like that's how dating in general goes.
God,
you're just like, oh, I don't know.
So many dates I've been on, like what are we talking about? Like what are we going? And like
you gotta feel it out, you know?
You gotta feel it out. Everything you kind of do, you have to feel it out. And like maybe you have a great connection and maybe you don't, and maybe it's something that, you know, you have to figure out on your end before kind of like going into a relationship deeper with someone, if you're willing to like just like not think about it. It just like becomes a part of them and what you end up loving, liking, whatever about somebody. And so that's always a thing.
And I think oftentimes, like a lot of the comments that I got about like, would you ever, if you wouldn't date a disabled person, what are your concerns? Like a lot of the questions that comments that I got came back to like planning a life together and being like, well, I don't know, like I want kids and I want this and that. Like it was like long-term things, right?
Long-term.
And sometimes I think that there's almost long-term decisions made based on like, if I put amputee in a dating profile or
like
whatever.
a brief,
or like if I told
2
you that on a
second
first date,
thing. Yeah.
It's like you're thinking about like, okay, what's this going to mean for like our entire relationship? There's no need to do that because it's often so individual to the person. And oftentimes there are things that even if you're like, well, that would be a deal breaker, you end up finding a way to like work
go
through
about it and work on together. Exactly.
Yeah. Because if they're the person that you want to be with and they're the person you want to be with and you figure it out. So I think that there's this knee-jerk reaction to think about the next 10 years if you want to be in some kind of long-term relationship and be like, I don't know if I could do that.
I do that anyways. I like the first time I meet someone, I'm like, so what's 10 years? It's like, well, Allie, it's like a random Tuesday. How about we don't think about that? About like 2035. But yeah, I think I think that's normal for anybody to kind of like jump the gun and think this, that, and the other without really getting to know them. And I think if you're willing to just be open about it and then not constantly be thinking and fixating on this one thing. And also it's about not wanting to be overbearing in a relationship and not wanting to be too much, I guess, and kind of go with the pace of that person and just do whatever is right for them and it suits them. But also, you know, when in a relationship, obviously it should be an even playing field regardless. And it should just have that kind of like good stability, good flow, and good open, honest conversations as well. No matter what. I mean, let's talk about that. No, but we shouldn't. But that's just one thing I feel like definitely like, I don't know, the younger generation. And again, I'm not sure like the demographic of like our audience here, but I think the younger generation is like so much more accepting about so many things, which I think is really cool. And I think that they're like in a way teaching us how to be just more like F it and just be like, this is it and this is life. And it's I don't want to say it's awesome, but it's like kind of awesome that you can kind of look at these younger kids, as much as they like, you know, love their social media and they're on their screens, like they have that good heart and like good intentions. And I whenever I like think about dating, I think about when I kind of was their age in a weird way, because that's kind of when you start having like crushes and you're developing feelings for people. But I feel like if I were to meet someone back when I was younger, I don't, and if they were disabled, I don't even know where I would turn to like look for something just to kind of relate to. So I hope if they're watching and they could be like, oh, okay, well, this is kind of helpful and just kind of how to navigate it at such a young age. Because, you know, it's a little bit different when you're a little bit older because you have a little bit more maturity, you're a little wiser, you have a more experience, hopefully. But if not, then you're on your own at that point. But if you're like, you know, like 18, 20 kind of thing like that, it's one of those things where you don't really talk about it because you're never really maybe like introduced to someone, but like it's just like a normal person that's like walking by. But just again, I feel like we reiterated like 1,000 times, but the respect thing is just huge. It's just huge. I mean, listen, if the person, whoever they are, like not your type, not your type, not that, but they're not a nice person, then don't give them time of day. Not for you, and that's okay. But I mean, you shouldn't knock someone. Easy, done, check, gone. But you shouldn't just knock someone just because of something that they're I don't even want to say limited to, because I see no limits. Like with anybody, if you want to get after it, you're going to do it. You're going to find a way, you're going to make it work. And that's just determination. And that's like on their own person. So I don't want to say that, but it's just a different way of living. So like when I get up in the morning, I don't think, I just go, I walk to the bathroom, I do my thing.
Exactly.
It's different. You have to put on the leg. You have to think about
assembly required.
The assembly required. You have to go through all the little steps. And that's just the way it is. And it's nice to just kind of be able to be so open about things that are just so real, you know? And so if you're willing to do that and you're willing to have an open mind, I think with a partner in that sense, then you shouldn't be scared to date. Although dating is scary.
Dating's scary in general.
Dating's scary in general. It's like
I'm not in
maybe like a person. I know I'm out here, Joe. I'm just, you know, single gal living my best life.
Heck yeah.
Like, dating apps, regardless of who you're meeting on dating apps, it's a brutal scene. It's a brutal scene. Some people just like don't know how to speak. And it's funny because you don't even really know people's tones, I guess. So it's funny when you're on those apps and you're like, is this like sarcasm? Is this like, is it not? And then you have to like differentiate, right? And then you're a jerk, and then you have to like meet them, and you're like, oh gosh. And so I'm just like, God, please send me someone just like in my life that like is just like living in my day to day. But some people have great success on dating apps, which I think is awesome. Yeah, which it works for people. So I think it's great. I think if they're good people, then they're good people. But such a weird world we're all like living in. It's like, I'm gonna go, like, can you believe like when we were younger, we were literally told don't talk to strangers, and now we're like, every stranger is a friend.
Get in the car with your Uber driver as you meet the person from Tinder, and
like, you're flying there, you're like, this is my husband. It's like, could be a catfish. Like, I'm gonna trust it. It's so funny just to think about everything. So hold on to your husband, Joe. He seems like a gem.
He's an absolute gem. I wish he'd be on camera more with me because he's so funny. I always tell him, like, if he would do his own social media stuff, he'd be so much more successful than I ever could be, because he's so freaking funny. He's so freaking funny. Is he like he just doesn't like it. He doesn't like being on camera. He's over it. Oh my God, he makes me laugh so much. He's from like New York. He's a very New York guy, and I love it.
I love that. I mean, but don't you enjoy that you kind of have that kind of like own little like section of your life kind of like to yourself, or would you want it to be?
Absolutely.
I guess it's like half
no,
and
I think it's great, especially when like he's not super into social media, and I obviously am, because it's I enjoy it, but it's also my job. And so it's good that we have that, like, I need to disconnect from that when we're spending time together. I'm not checking my phone, I'm not looking at anything, right? It's like we're together. And if we both were in that same world, I think it'd be hard to be like to pull it apart.
Because then because then you wouldn't have your own like space, you wouldn't have your own thing to kind of like do. And social media is such a world where you're not at an office, so you're just like, hi, how are you? We're both doing social media right here and working and being together. So that's good that you guys have your own kind of thing, though. I appreciate that about you guys. I don't even know him, and I'm like, I think it is good.
He's great.
I love that. Well, this was good. I think it's important to talk about like the awkward first kind of steps, what people are looking for, what matters most. And I think there's one thing that's the common, conception of this whole segment that we're putting out there is just treat people like you would want to be treated. And that just comes down to flat out relationships, whether they be romantic or not. It's just always important to just have that sense of respect and honesty. So this was great. Thank you, Joe, for giving your point of views and your 2 cents about dating. And maybe we'll have some people comment and say this helped, and maybe they'll get their first partner from this. I don't know. Maybe we're lighting up weddings here. Allie. Maybe we are. Maybe we'll get some bridesmaids dresses going on. You never know. Get some invitations in the mail. I'm pretty excited.
I'll be waiting.
If anyone wants to send us, just let me know. Just DM us. We're very ready at the ready, always ready. And we'll come. We'll provide anything you need. Not a lot, but something.
Not a lot. We'll make it.
Just us there doing another segment at your own wedding. That'd be too funny. And bring our little mics. But anyways, thank you guys for watching this episode. And last episode, we did say if you had any questions for Joe, we are doing a live at the end of June on the Liner One's Instagram. So go comment on that video with any questions you may have. And of course, when this video comes out, tell us your thoughts. How do you feel? Is there someone that you've been looking into, but you're not really sure about it? You never know. We can always kind of help you out in the comment section down there. So thank you so much, Joe. And thank you guys all for watching. And our episode 3 will be out next week. And that's where we're going to get a little bit deep and talk about the word inspiring and why that needs to be gone, yeeted from our vocabulary.
Or at least, used a lot less.
Little less. Put the simmer on the word. Like, put that simmer.
Simmer down.
Simmer down. All right, well, thank you guys, and we'll see you on the next episode.
We'll see you then.
Bye.